Welcome to another episode of Chaii and Charcha powered by Chaiiwala. So guys, super excited today because today's guest is one of my role models. I look up to this lady. She is an absolute female powerhouse. She is the managing director of the Northern Powerhouse Ethnic Minority Business and Policy Forum. What a long name that is. And it is equally as important as the name sounds. But that's not where her role ends. She is also the founder of the Yorkshire Asian Business Association, which gives voice to our region's South Asian business talent, both on a national and international stage. Her influence stretches far beyond the UK, opening doors as she travels the globe on trade mission for businesses here and overseas. She's also been recognised as Asian Standard's most influential woman in Leeds and probably beyond. She also has an OBE and she is a devoted mother. Let's meet the superhouse, Sharon Jandu OBE. Hi Sharon.
Hi Fatima, what an introduction. I feel quite humbled actually.
It's only right, Sharon, with the amount of things that you've been doing. Tell me, you've just come back from India, haven't you? You just come back from a trade mission.
Correct. So came back last week. For the first time we only focused on South India, and the key purpose was to really look at how can we really get behind the comprehensive free trade agreement that was agreed earlier this year between India and the UK, to really look at how can we support small businesses to start trading with India. Part of the challenge has been that big business has been in India for many, many years, but the small business community, how do we really try to encourage non-Asian businesses to trade with India?
Well, what a challenge, and if anyone can do it, it's you, Sharon.
Now, I'm doing my best.
I think you're doing better than best. And I'm not being biased. I'm only saying that because I've known you, and I don't want to say this openly because then my age will be revealed, but I've known you for decades, literally.
We've grown up together. Well, I am older than you, I need to say that. But we have grown up together.
We have, literally, I think, from a career perspective, we've seen each other's careers, go through challenges, but also prosper. And you are where you are because of a lot of graft that you've gone through. So I want to start from the beginning with you, Sharon, because a lot of people know Sharon, who is, on so many different boards, who is the founder of all these associations and really well networked and connected, not just here in Yorkshire, but across the UK and now across the globe. But let's go back, your early years. Let's talk about where you studied first. And then what was your very first job? I'd like to know, Sharon.
Sure.
Because you're such an inspiration to so many women out there, so many South Asian women. We have very few that we can really look up to and say that they've really achieved in business. And I think you're a rarity because you're not just achieved in terms of setting up your own organisations, but also in terms of helping countless other organisations, including mine, in terms of networking, but also prospering and developing and growing. So let's start from the beginning.
I mean, Fatima, do you want me to... I won't be able to get my head out that door when I leave. I mean, what are...
Well, these are facts, Sharon. At the moment, I'm only giving you facts. These are actual facts, and anyone can Google search Sharon Jandu, and they will see that for themselves. These are facts that I'm talking about. And a lot of people watching this, the countless businesses that you have worked with and continue to work with, will also vouch for me. I'm pretty sure of that. So they're facts we're talking about. So let's start. Where did you study and what did you study first? I believe it was PR marketing, was it?
So it's a really interesting question, and since you've said a lot of things about me, I'd just rather be honest with you. I mean, I really didn't have any clue in terms of where I wanted to go with my life, because and actually if my family and hopefully they'll watch this, if they hear what I've got to say, my life always starts and ends with me. So the sole purpose, the sole mission is I really want to be happy. So when I was doing my A-levels, when I was sort of 17, the whole idea was to go to university, but I met Jagjit's dad at the time. And when you're 17, the only thing that matters to you is, or the only criteria is drop dead gorgeous. So he was really, really good looking. So I kind of like decided that I just want to be with him. And it's funny really, my parents have just been phenomenal. My family's just been my bedrock all my life. But so my first ever, so while I was doing my A-levels, I decided I didn't want to do that. And I wanted to be a hairdresser.
No wonder you've got such a
well, do you know what? So I actually qualified as being by the time I was 18, 19, I was a fully qualified hairdresser and beauty therapist. And I then decided that I didn't want to work for anybody. So, and I had Jagjit at the time. I was 19 when I had Jagjit. And decided that I need to open my own business. So I went to Trinity in All Saints because my parents lived around there and I needed childcare support and that kind of thing. And ended up doing a degree which was in business studies and public media. And at that time, I just fell in love with public media. The business studies was really good, but the public media in terms of PR, marketing, journalism, I just loved it. So at that time, my whole career path changed. So forget the hairdressing and the beauty therapy, just went into media and loved it.
And that's how we sort of met, wasn't it, when I was launching my business and you were helping with the PR side of it.
100%.
So it was an amazing meeting, actually. I still vividly remember it. But it's interesting what you said there, and I was reading, I can't remember who actually said it. When we're growing up, we always get asked, what do you want to be? And a lot of people always reply with their chosen profession: doctor, engineer, lawyer, a lot of the South Asian popular career choices. But nobody actually says, I want to be happy. And I think that's so important. And you just said that that's what you wanted to be. Happy.
To be honest, Fatima, I always say that to a lot of people now, and I've realised that the word is have purpose. And if you are happy and if you are well, that's the only way that you can add value to anybody else. And my only ever mission in my life is that if I'm happy, then I'm able to add value to other people. It sounds really selfish. In fact, when I talk to my son, sometimes he'll say to me, "Come on, you're so selfish." But I think to myself, well, I'm not really, because if I'm in a good place, I can do other things for other people. But if you're really down and, if you're really kind of like just focusing on yourself in terms of what's not going right, then how can you be of any use to anybody else? So my only criteria in life when I wake up in the morning is that, right, what do I need to do to make myself have a really good day?
No, but it's true what you say,
around really good people. Yeah. So if I meet people that I think, God, what a drain, I just think, right, cut them off my list.
No, but it's true what they say, because when we're on the aeroplane, for example, and they're giving us that safety thing, they always tell us first, sort yourself out before you start helping others. So you have to, it's like the other analogy of you can't fill from a cup that's empty, you've got to fill from a full cup. And that's what you've done with the vast majority of businesses that you've supported over the years. So once you got your qualification in public relations, where next? Where did you go next after that, Sharon?
So this will give you a bit of an idea of the kind of person I was. And I blame my parents, because when we grew up, there's four of us, they gave us unconditional love. And literally my mum used to tell all of us, but I think I took it literally every day, how brilliant we are and how gorgeous we are and how fantastic we are, is that in the second year of the course, we had the managing editor of Network East. He came to Trinity and gave a presentation and this, that and the other. And literally he wrote, anybody interested in a career in media, Birmingham, Pebble Mill, write to me. And so I did. And he said, yeah, great. And then he said, oh, actually, we've got these opportunities coming up. You should apply. So I did. And I didn't get an interview, you see. So I was so horrified and so annoyed that actually I wrote to him. I said, how dare you? I said, look at me. Look how great I look. Look at the kind of person I am. And I think he just laughed so much. So he said, right, fine, you start in 2 weeks. So I was a bit kind of like taken aback. And I started to do a little bit of project work, because at the time the BBC was deregulating. And actually I had Jaggi was only, I think he was only about 2 years old. And this was based in Birmingham. So I just went over there, did a little bit of work there. But it worked out better for me when I applied for another job, which was, you're going to laugh again, it was in Kirklees, and it was all around the career service, but the job title was Asian Girls Careers Guidance Outreach Officer, and the spec was quite fantastic, really, because it was based at the Indian Workers Association in Huddersfield, and then with the career service, but it was all around inspiring Asian girls in Kirklees to support them with their career aspirations. And I thought, oh, do you know what, I could do that. And anyway, I applied for it and got it. Really enjoyed it. However, I didn't really go down that well with the Indian Workers Association. So my boss at the time was, in fact, we're really good friends now, it's like an older brother, was Chaiiwala. He was the deputy he's the deputy careers advisor or principal careers advisor, and what used to happen was I just got so involved in the project. In fact, we set up a magazine called Reflections, and I had my BBC contacts, and it was really good. And actually set up a little company, got girls working on it and whatever. But the IWA, they had different ideas because it was a Section 11 post, and actually they just wanted somebody that would come in and make tea and coffee. But I was always out there and, working with the community and really sort of like engaging with the career service, working on the data, what was happening to these young girls that were sort of not completing their education. So they put in a complaint, and then, so I was called into the office, and so Saeed, a lovely guy, he said, Sharon, he said, their only complaint is that you don't make tea for the board when the board come in and have their committee meetings. I said, Saeed, you make tea. I'm not making tea. So he didn't know what to say. And actually, I was in my early 20s at the time, and if I've learned something, one of the things that I've learned over the years is humility. And I think I probably would have, if I'd have had my time back again, I probably would have just made tea. It would have just diffused the whole situation. But what happened was that refusal made it that they complained right up to the chief executive. It was Rob Hughes at the time. And I was the only section, I was level 4. It was quite a junior level. But the impact was so good, and I was so engaged with the career service that they complained so much, and all, they were having meetings about me because I really disrupted the community. In fact, it was so embarrassing that because the press, I think it was Huddersfield Examiner, did a really good feature on me about the work that I was doing and the magazine and whatever, and they actually held up in the Gurdwara, that this girl, don't speak to her, whatever. I only found out from somebody else. So I was a bit kind of taken aback by that. But what happened was that it came under the nose of Rob Hughes, who was the CEO at the time, and he was so impressed with the work that I'd done. He just said, take it out of there, take it out of the community, close the project down. And that's when I trained as a careers advisor. So I'm actually a fully qualified careers advisor. So I did the postgraduate diploma in careers guidance. Really enjoyed it. And from being sort of like in a marginalised post, Section 11, went into mainstream and loved it. And then from then I got headhunted to work for the Institute of Careers Guidance. I applied for a position as the editor of their magazine Careers Guidance Today, got it, and that was based in Stourbridge, just outside Birmingham, and I never looked back after that, because then from there I then got headhunted to work for the Institute of Financial Accountants, which is based down in London, So I spent 30 years in London just building my career, to be honest. But it's funny, isn't it, how stuff works out?
What an incredible journey. What an incredible journey. And a rebel, refusing to make tea. It's a good thing Chaiiwala provided the tea today. But what an interesting journey, Sharon, because a lot of... I mean, your career started in an era where things were quite traditional for women. You know, we're talking about how things have advanced for women now in terms of equality and stuff. And you were a disruptor way before.
I mean, to be fair,
all these conversations around equality and pay parity and stuff.
I didn't see it like that. The thing that really upset me the most was that I was going through a bit of a challenging time at home as well.
Mm.
So you know, going back to Jagjit's father, so we married. So literally, you know, I was penniless student. He wasn't working either, and we didn't have anything. And then for me, it was kind of like, oh my God, I've really got to get out of this poverty trap, which is why education, getting a good job. So I was spending a lot of hours trying to build my career at work, going home late, and then, you know, you do the right stuff, you know, make roti, this, that and the other. And, you know, he still have murky face, you know, kind of thing. And my worst fear, and I laugh at it now, that because of the stick that I was getting from the Indian Workers Association, because they're all, and actually the worst thing was, they were my community. They were the Sikh community that turned against me. I was so upset. And my only worry was that, oh my God, what if they tell my in-laws? Then I was thinking to myself, actually, I didn't even think straight. I thought, I just wanted to hide it all. Just did not want any of that to happen. But when I reflect, I thought, God, I was so stupid. I don't know why I was so afraid. But sorry, I cut across. But it just brought back that memory.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting you say that, because as women, when men go to work, they don't have to worry about those things. They don't have to worry about, well, what will the in-laws think? What will the family think? That pressure is always on the woman, isn't it? To make sure that she's representing the family values. She's not bringing shame on the family, and she's doing as she's told.
I think for me it was a little bit different in that, because it was a love marriage, and I was one of five. So there were 5 sons, 2 daughters, and I was 4th. So as you know, in the pecking order, I was a nothing really, because the older 2 were kind of like the front people in that family, and they were very traditional, lovely people, very traditional. And when I got married, and it was the first time I ever met them, because I was so busy, you know, going out with Devinda, that actually when I got married, I got such a culture shock. And they got a culture shock because they'd never met anybody like me, because I remember the eldest daughter-in-law, it was a big deal cutting the hair, because I'm from the Sikh community, you're not supposed to cut your hair. And I remember her saying that, oh, now we'll see what Mum will say, because the number 4, she's got a hair, because I've always had my hair cut. And when I met them and they met me, we were equally, you know, disgusted. You know, I thought, oh my God, and they were, oh my God. But actually what happened was that the more they got to know me in terms of, you know, working hard, having that hard work ethic, education, values, and also the fact that we were brought up as good girls, you know, we knew how to make roti, we knew how to, you know, look after the family values. They really respected and admired that. But the more I did what I did, the more they respected and loved me. But I drifted away from my partner. You know, it was really odd, because I changed from what I was. You know, and he's not a bad guy. It was just that I just became a very, very different person to the person that he married, which, you know, and that's why I think sometimes, and I say this to a lot of, especially our women, that actually get a good job, get a good education, because nobody will underestimate you. If you've got a good education and you get a good job, they will value you so much, and in fact support you even more.
So it's that financial and educational independence really that, you know, you'd advise a lot of young girls, and probably advise yourself from your own early years. So that's great. I mean, you worked in this magazine in London for 30 odd years. What made you come back to Yorkshire then?
So actually, Careers Guidance Today was about 4 years. No, 2 years. And then I got headhunted to work for the Institute of Financial Accountants. And then from there went to Santander, then went to Microsoft. I've always had the side hustle, because when I was at Santander, one of the projects was the formation of the National Asian Business Association. And that's when I realised there's nothing in Yorkshire. So it's a bit of a side hustle. And actually, I'm one of the founder members. There were four other people on the board. I've just been the sort of like the constant. And actually, I quite enjoyed doing the organising the stuff. And actually, I was the only woman on there. So, the guys were at the front and I was behind the scenes. And I like being behind the scenes, actually. So that was always Yorkshire-based. Why I had to leave sort of like Microsoft was because I set up a charity. You'll know this because you really supported me with that charity. So, and you also know that I've been a magistrate now for 20 years. And the charity looked at rehabilitating young offenders. And it was growing out of control. And so back in 2019, 2020, I had to sort of like leave my career with Microsoft and really get a handle on that. So I realised in the corporate world I was a really good entrepreneur, and I realised that I'm a good entrepreneur, but I just couldn't get my head around scaling a business. So left Microsoft, focused on the charity, which you visited and supported me, and really got behind it as well, and then really sort of like made sure that didn't go bankrupt, because it would have made me bankrupt, because I actually put everything behind that. And that's when in 2019, 2020, I started to build out Yabba, and then set up the Northern Powerhouse Ethnic Minority Business and Policy Forum. Mouthful, awful name. If you can think of anything better, honestly, God, Fatima, you'll do me a good turn there.
It does actually make it clear though what it's about. The name might be long, but we actually know what it is about. But yeah, wow, what a journey.
And it's all that levelling up agenda. And the reason why I moved away from just focusing on the Asian business community is that currently I'm a non-exec director on a few different boards. And one of the boards that I'm on is a housing board, and I chair their enterprise centre, Unity Enterprise. And it makes me really proud, about the work that I'm doing. And when they ask you to do that talk about, who you are and what do you do, and the audience in front of me were not reflecting the Asian community, so African, Caribbean, Eastern European, I thought, oh my God, I'm not inclusive myself. So change the name to be more reflective of communities that we really wanted to respect and to support. And actually, what a great honour for the Asian community from 20 odd years ago to where they are now. They're now £1 billion businesses. So if we can put back and help other communities, I think that's a really powerful thing.
That's incredible. So you've never been afraid of moving out of your comfort zone. So, people like me, I've always been working in Bradford, and I do now do quite a lot of work in London, but only as I've grown and become more mature in business. Whereas my early years, I wouldn't ever think of leaving home, because that's my space, that's my comfort zone. And yet here you were with a 2-year-old child, going wherever work takes you. What gives you that? What gave you that drive and that passion to just think, it's because it's a risk as well, especially when you've got responsibility. It's a huge risk to just leave that safe space, that comfort zone, and go and explore. What was the drive behind doing that, Sharon, for you?
So I think for me, I never think about things in that way. For me, I always see an opportunity, and also what's the motivator at that particular time. Financial. So it was really because we didn't have any money, and this was something that it would be something that I really enjoyed. So it's a great opportunity, and I knew I could do it. So it's always working out what's the best way to do it. So it's finding out, okay, I've got a son, there's a family responsibility as well. So working it out in terms of how would that work. So my parents were fantastic. My mum literally, sort of like she's a nurse. So she looked after Jagjeet and my sisters, my brother. In fact, Jagjeet for many years thought that my younger sister and brother were his brother and sister. Aww. Because I used to leave him on a Monday night, go down on a Monday night, come back on a Thursday night, and he'd stay, be within that family ecosystem. And then obviously with Devinda, sort of like taking care of the family stuff. But then what was really good was that the compromise was that I was a daughter-in-law, a mother, doing everything over the weekend. But I would do that because the goal for me was actually those 4 days in the week, I was doing things that were important to me, and I loved it. The funniest thing was that when I started working in London, because one of my sister-in-laws was, they were based in London, and she'd always say, "Oh, Sharon," and because I really, really got on well with my with Jagjit's side of the family, with my in-laws, and she said, "Sharon, come and stay with us." And so when you're staying in London and you know you're living in a hotel, whatever, it's fine. But when you stay with family, she'd always invite everybody over. I think, oh my God, I've got a full day's work the next day. She'd go off, I call so and so, thinking, oh my God, now I'm cooking and cleaning for them. Then the next day you'd be shattered for work. I mean, it's a great compliment. It was really lovely, but it was really nice. And I think one of the great things about our Asian community is that whole thing around family, you know, and that whole thing around celebration as well. I just brought that back. Sorry to share that, but
no, it's great.
Really
it's nice that you say, you know, that whole unit, I suppose, gives you that support. You've got that unit, but then you've also got the extended side of the family who will always have something to say. And knowing the generation that you grew up from, that generation wasn't as open-minded as they are today. So here you are, separated, young child, travelling all over the country to try and pursue a career, away from family. There must have been some noise around that from extended family members or wider communities to say, look at her, look at what she's doing, she's just leaving her son, she's going off, blah, blah, blah. If that did happen, how did you block that noise out to continue?
I didn't need to, Fatima. So I'll give you an example. As I was growing up, and you know the typical Sikh girl, you know, 2 plaits, going to school, whatever. Since I was about 11, 12, I always wanted to cut my hair. I just used to beg. So when I turned 13, I said to my mum, I said, "Oh, mum, please, please." I said, "I don't want anything else for my birthday present."
You were always a rebel.
I just want to see what my hair looks like, short. I just really want to get it cut. So my mum, she took me to the hairdressers. It's still there, actually, outside Leeds Kirkgate Market. And, you know, took me there, got all my hair cut, came back all fluffy, bushy thing. It was so funny. I just loved it. I couldn't believe it. My dad came, and my dad's just phenomenal. And my dad was one of those that, in fact, my mum would say, if we ever did anything wrong or whatever, I'll tell you, Dad. My dad never shouted. He never said anything, but we were always, "Oh my God, Mum, don't tell Dad." But my dad just looked. I said, "Dad, honest to God, I'm going to grow it. I just want to see what it looked like. It's for my birthday." My Babaji, my grandfather, was living with us. He was a bit taken aback. But for me, the biggest thing was, that's it. I've had my hair cut. But you would not believe it, Fatima. So this was in the early 70s. People came round to our house. So we were, like the elders.
Yeah.
They all turned up to our house. And they were all, you know, came round, and my dad was there. And my dad's a lovely guy, gentleman, and quite shy. But if you've met my mum's pretty forthright and really kind of formidable. And so they're all sat there, and Sikh family all having drinks, whatever the guys were. And then one of them, he said, my dad's called Mohan. He said, "Mohan," he said, "Kudi de vaal katte ditte," i.e., you know, cut your daughter's hair. My dad was kind of like thinking, oh, you know, my mum came in, "Baji, fir ki hoya?" Her hair. So what? He said, no, met the odde, you know, whatever. So my mum, I never had to defend myself. My family, which is why I'm saying, my parents, 100%. Even when I was going out with Devinder, and then, you know, the families got round to it. And my mum, you know, went round, and, you know, let they take the sugar and everything.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law, they lived in Mexborough, you know, in Chapelton and whatever. And my mum, don't get me wrong, my mum and dad tried everything to talk me out of it. They just said, it's not a match, it's not going to work. And the more they said that, the more I'm thinking, he must be good. If they're saying no, because, you know, as a kid, he must be really good.
Of course.
So to cut a long story short, my mum went round, and my father, and they take sugar and everything. And my mother-in-law, she, you know, because she'd seen me, got over the horrified state and thought, oh God, they're going to get married. And all she said was, "Ha, Benji, and at least at least I'll get dinner at night." So my mum laughed.
Yeah.
And she said, "Benji, why are you laughing?" And mum said, "I've never had it, but so they've always had my back. Yeah. Even when they saw that things were not working out. So I mean, I was married for 20 odd years. My mum always said, if you've made a mistake, it does not matter. You know, we've got you back. I said, "Look, it's my mistake, Mum. We'll sort it out." If I'd have had an arranged marriage though, Fatima, I'd have been out.
Yeah.
100%. I'd have said, you found him, you sort it out. But because it was, and I think for me, I don't like failure. So for me, it's kind of like, if I've created something, I've got to sort it out. So I've never had to defend myself. And it's funny because then when my in-laws got to know me, and because I only had one son, so you can imagine going to the Gurdwara, are you have any more kids? Why? They'd say, it's fine, she's fine. They would then stick up for me.
Yeah.
She's fine, you know.
Yeah.
So I've always had people that have kind of like looked out for me, really. So I've been really blessed.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Both sides of the families, from your in-laws as well as from your own family, they've always been really supportive. And that's incredible. But then I suppose it's also because of your character. They probably must have got an inkling, or they probably must have known that she's strong enough, she can sort herself out. And they probably went along with your decisions because they probably knew also an instinct that...
I think it's more around the thinking she's not going to change. If she's going to do that, she's just going to do it. So do you know what? Let's just support her.
Just let her do it.
Just let her do it. Yeah, you know, and pick up the pieces afterwards if it goes wrong. But touch wood, we've kind of like got there.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets on any of the decisions you made?
I think I alluded to it earlier. I think humility. So, you know, one of the greatest assets or the greatest things in my life is that, you know, my family have just been a rock. But, you know, I kind of like believed that I was the best, you know, so you have an attitude. So I think humbleness, humility is powerful. I remember, so I did my MBA when I realised I was an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur, to learn how to scale a business. Going into the world of academia, which I really, really enjoy, when I did my second master's, which was in leadership, I always thought leadership was about power and making people do things. Now I realise it's about empowerment and actually getting the best out of people. So not regret, but actually I wish I'd have learned that a bit earlier in my life. And actually, it sounds even more cheesy, but, you know, when I see people do well and I've been a little bit part of that journey, I feel as if it's a personal victory for me. You know, like you know, like how you know, I've known you for so many years and where you are and what you're doing. I feel as if, you know, championing you myself. I think, oh my God, I know her, you know, and I've known her for, I feel so proud.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So when I see that, you know, that generation of people and younger people coming through, I think, wow. But I'm equally hard on people as well. And I think why people kind of like do ask me for advice is because I just tell them. You know, I don't tell people what they want to hear. I tell people what I would want people to say to me. So if I think it's not the right thing, I'll say, well, I wouldn't do this because of X, Y, and Z. Because I think that's fair to do. I mean, I try not to be hard, but I try to be honest.
You're practical with the advice, aren't you? Yeah.
Whereas there's a lot of people that will say stuff, or actually, I think adversity is a powerful thing. So if you think about it, I had everything on a plate when I was young, but getting married and then having nothing, I was in shock, you know. But then it was kind of like, right, okay, I need to sort this out. So I think adversity is a good thing, you know, and having those aspirations and that, and being inspired by other people that have done it as well is a powerful thing.
It's interesting you say that, because some people, when they go through adverse moments or phases in their life, they give up. Your motto was, no, I need to sort it out. How do you get that mindset?
Because I've got a goal. So you've got to have a goal. So it's a bit like playing football. You know, how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you're scoring? So, you know, you've got to have a strategy. You've got to have a plan. And my goal, and you know, up until my sort of, I would say, 30s, I just wanted to be rich because I'd seen so much poverty and I had no money. I mean, I remember when we got our first house, it was in the Mexboroughs. The mortgage was £100 a month. I mean, the cost of the house was 15,000. Mortgage was £100 a month, and we were thinking, how are we going to pay that? You know, in fact, one of the offers on the mortgage was, you know, free furniture removal. We thought, well, we can carry it round. We hadn't got any furniture. You know, we had nothing. So when you've seen that, and I've seen it a few times in my life where, you know, like when we set the charity up, where I thought, oh my God, I'm losing everything that I've built up. That actually, if you've got to really go back and work out a plan, have a structure, have a plan, and you've got to really think about what you're trying to do and stick to it.
Yeah. So what is your plan now? Because you're sat with so many projects locally here for Yorkshire, then you've got lots of things that you're doing nationally, but now also you're doing things globally. So managing all of that firstly, but also in terms of your plan and your, end goal from here.
So with the organisations that have been established, so YABA and NPH, I've got teams that look after that. It kind of like runs itself. I've got a few non-exec positions where I can give back. I like doing that. The magistrates' work I really find powerful, and the reason for that is that I always say to people, if you really want to know what's going on in your community, get outside Court 1, because you see real vulnerability. And that's the other thing that keeps me humble, because you see people that are really facing challenges. So, you look at policymakers, you look at what's going on, you look at how that impacts the most vulnerable in society. And that's when you see how things are unfair. So I do want to continue with that, because it keeps me humble, keeps me grounded. The India stuff really excites me. And why does it excite me? Is because even though we were born here, Fatima, our heart is still Hindustani. We can't get away from that. We feel so proud of our heritage, and the fact that, by 2030 it's a global power. If there is any role that I can play in terms of supporting UK PLC, which is going backwards, you'd have to look at, what's happening within our economy. Growth strategy, looking at India as an opportunity, is a fantastic opportunity. I'd like to expand some of that. I'd like to work on some of that. So, because one of my directorships is with the Federation of Small Businesses, which is one of the largest SME membership organisations. And for them, I'm thinking, why are they thinking about India? And the problem with India is that people don't get it. When they go to India, they see chaos. And it's funny because we get it. Even though we were born here,
we understand the organised chaos.
But actually translating that, and I think it goes back to that living bridge.
Yeah.
If we can really capitalise on that, and actually India doesn't need us, because India's going to massively grow. But if we can support our country, which is the UK, have a piece of that action, then yeah, let's go for it. So I'd like to do a bit of that actually.
Amazing. And how do you find the time to do all this? So I look at your social media and I think, right, she just travelled back from London to Yorkshire. Now she's going from Yorkshire to Manchester, and then she's flying to India. I remember actually we had a conversation where we were at an awards night, weren't we? And you just travelled back from Berlin just to come to the event, only to fly back out to go back to the event that you'd left
for you. It was for your Asian achievement. I only came back for you. I thought, I can't miss this.
But I couldn't believe you did that.
No, I didn't.
Not many people would.
I did do that.
To fly back from a country to come for an awards night, to then fly back, to then rejoin that conference.
And well, to be honest, it was only Europe. But for me,
travel.
You see, that's where I think people are important. And celebrating people are important, because if you think about purpose in life, it's about how do you enrich and how do you add value to the people and make them feel important, and you are important. So there's certain people in my life where I just feel that you need to be part of something that's exciting for them, or something. If they're going through a troubling time, be there for them, be their rock. And at the time, it was when you won the Asian Achievement of the Year awards. I thought, I can't miss that. And I made it work. So I just had a look, online, the flights and everything. And for me, it's kind of like, I do a lot of meditation, go to sleep, whenever, catch up. And it was only Berlin, so it wasn't a big deal. But I really enjoyed it. So it was a really proud moment for me. Thank you, It
was a wonderful moment, actually. I remember that well. And thank you so much for being there, celebrating it with me. But that's not the only thing. Like, it's not just travel. It's you've done your MBA. So you were studying as well as travelling, doing all these trade missions, as well as supporting YABA, because at that time it was still in its infancy. You were still setting it up. Now it runs itself, but when you were doing your MBA, when you were running the charity, when you were doing all these networking events, when you were starting on the trade missions, this was all happening back to back. studies, as well as running multiple organisations, as well as being on several boards, as well as doing these trade missions. Where's that energy coming from, Sharon?
So
It's definitely not the chai.
Well, and delicious, beautiful, love it. Thank you for the chai. I think it's all about purpose and the reason why I'm doing it. So I'm on my current master's, which is on data analytics and generative AI.
So you're still studying?
Oh yeah, and I'll start my PhD next year with the University of York. But it's all about knowledge, Fatima. Because if you look at the journey with Yaba and then NPH, all the knowledge has come from what I've learned from academia. And when I did the MBA, before I did the MBA, I just couldn't get my head around, I can't scale. Then I realised, I thought, right, okay, I need to go back into education. And that's when the penny dropped. And then when I realised, I thought, right, I need more of this. So I will always be a lifelong learner, because when I look at what they're learning and the knowledge that they have within universities, they're powerhouses. So the current master's is helping me do the whole thing around digital transformation, data analytics, and also looking at really understanding what is a data saying. I don't actually want to do it, but I want to be able to know what questions do I need to ask when I employ or engage with companies or with people that do it for me, which is one of the reasons why we're currently at 4,000 members. By next year we'll be 10,000 members and growing.
Well,
But I know the strategy, and I've learned that at uni, at Bradford Uni. So that's why I do it. And actually, and for me, it's a real high when I've got that knowledge, and then it all fits into place. In terms of learning, it's technique. And I learned that on my second master's, because I thought, I can't get my head around writing this chuffing dissertation. Then I realised how they do it. So it's just a technique, and I've just mastered the technique
of juggling all this.
Well, to be honest, and I'm good at delegating, and I have good teams and good people, and actually the other thing as well is I choose the company that I keep. So I have the right ecosystem, the right people, delegate, empower people, and then it all happens. And I'm not married, and my son is in his 30s as well, and I live with my mum, which is brilliant.
So those are the secrets. Those are the top tips that you need to be able to do so much work in less than...
But Fatima, I do less than what I did when I had, the in-laws at the weekend, because literally they'd always have somebody around on a Friday night, and literally she'd call everybody, my mother-in-law, which is brilliant actually. So we'd be cooking, cleaning, making rotis or whatever till 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'd always be the roti maker and knew how to do round ones, or the washer.
Do I just can't picture you doing that, because we see this powerhouse of a woman today. I just do not see a roti maker. I do not, or a tea maker, and you definitely shun that.
I make good tea actually, but no, but you know what? I like that. I remember, it's funny because now, our Asian communities are doing so well, and I go back to when there was functions. We'd all get into the garage. It was always my aunt's, my sister-in-law's garage, where we'd make the murtinga, make all the samosas, because there was a wedding, and actually we'd have such a laugh getting together. Whereas now you go all dressed up and it's all self-catered. You miss all of that. Whereas you'd be in the kitchen, you'd be making all these thousands of samosas and stuff like that. You don't do that anymore,
No, you don't.
I won't be doing that for my son's wedding, by the way. Hopefully, when he does decide to get married, we'll get that sorted out.
Yeah, but it's like you said, that. I mean, it's brought a bit of nostalgia back for me as well. I just think that there was a lot more fun when you did it yourself. There was chaos, but it was just more fun because there was more memories. Now you just place an order, and there's no memories there, is there? You just go straight, eat, and that's it. It's finished.
We used to stay over at each other's houses as well. We used to take our little bags, stay over, and then you remember those times as well.
Absolutely. God, what days were they? Speaking of days, I mean, you've done numerous days and spent numerous years working with a plethora of businesses, ranging from service-based businesses like lawyers and accountants, to retail businesses, from fashion to food, to organisations like mine that are quite niche. Who would you say has been the most memorable business that you've ever worked with, and that you feel that your organisations, NPH and Yaba, have really sort of felt an impact in terms of supporting and seeing their growth?
I think, I mean, there hasn't been, I mean, everybody we work with people in different ways. And for some of them, actually for the majority of our Asian community, so if I sort of like break that down, the Asian community itself, they just needed to be part of the whole ecosystem. Our Asian community are phenomenal. I mean, if you think about, you know, the bigger organisations, you know, when you think about, you know, Milo Hall, you think about Agro Group, you think about Park Lane Properties, and you think about, you know, some of the other businesses, they've always been brilliant because they are grafters. They work really hard. So that hard work ethic, not expecting anything, but rolling sleeves up and doing everything, has been sort of like, you know, their secret sauce. Where we've supported, and we still do it, is actually bringing them into the mainstream. The biggest thing that we have to give is social capital. And one of the reasons why because actually the rest is just an infrastructure. Any membership organisation worth its weight should be a good infrastructure, whether it's looking at, you know, the pillars around access to finance or networking or, you know, certain sort of like key sort of like knowledge-based things, you know, whether it's around, you know, AI, that's the key thing now. That should be part of your infrastructure. But I think what has made us stand out and has been really powerful for our network is that social capital. So having the right contacts, the right people, because it's only when things go wrong, and it's really, really wrong, who do you turn to? So COVID was a really good example, because when everything switched off, for some of our bigger businesses, they didn't know who to speak to. So like if they were in hospitality or, you know, or something similar to that, literally their funding stream turned around. And then, you know, if the bank switched off, you know, whatever it was in terms of lending or whatever, they were in dire straits. We were able to go to the right people, whether it were politicians, whether it was, you know, the combined authority, whatever, and literally get them the right contact. So for us, you know, we're that bridge, you know, we're that signposter, and we're that advocate for them. And we do that even more, which is one of the reasons why we moved away from, you know, Yaba being kind of like, you know, organising events and networking, you know, looking at that whole thing around interfaith, diversity, inclusivity, making that really powerful, to actually making sure that our community has a voice. Because the first time we started to run Yaba and do these events, we used to get invitations to, you know, there's a report, can you give your view, whatever. And I just think, oh my God, thank you. Then we realised that, hang on a minute, we're just rearranging deck chairs. Then we said, no, we're not. When you are thinking of doing this report, we want to be round that table when those questions are devised. We want to meet the policy officers who are actually engaged in putting that report together. We want to be part of that dynamic. So in a sense, we push back unless we actually are influencing policy. So we're able to do that now. And we're able to sort of like, you know, say that this isn't right. So, you know, the good thing is that now we've got the ear of policymakers. So I suppose that's where our strength has been, and we've won the trust as well, Fatima. You know, over the years, what's happened is that we don't support one community, we support every community, you know, and we genuinely support every community. We try not to get into the, you know, into those silos of, you know, he said, she said, or, you know, certain things around politics, because it's not the right thing to do. We support good business and good people, and we stick to that, even if sometimes politically you think it's going to upset a certain community. We make it very clear that we're apolitical and we're doing the right thing for the right, you know, the right people and for our community. And the good thing is that people now realise that, and they support us, and they've now become the hand up for other people. So like I was saying, you know, the African community, the Caribbean community, the Eastern European, they're now the role models because they've been through it themselves.
It's interesting you say that, being the voice for business communities, and now obviously it's much wider than just the South Asian community. But do you feel that being from South Asian heritage or Black or Eastern European, we're treated slightly differently, you know, by banks, for example, or by policymakers, because the culture of how we do businesses is not properly understood? And is that where your organisation comes in? Or have I got that wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And it's about people and it's about their biases. So we spend a lot of time, and actually we hit on this sort of like 3 or 4 years into the work that we were doing with Yaba, because we used to do the, productivity, access to finance events. But the game changer for us was around faith. We started to celebrate Eid, we started to celebrate Diwali, and around Easter we celebrated everybody's really important festivals, because what we tried to show is that even though, we've got differences, actually we've got more in common. And we've now started to do that for certain industries and certain sectors. So, for example, the transport sector, they love, our Interfaith Day. And that started off with, because Northern, they're one of our corporate partners, and they said, Sharon, we've got a lot of people from the ethnic minority community who work for us, but they're not getting into director level, and we just don't understand why. So what we want to do is we want to understand a little bit more about the faith. What do you think? I said, well, why don't we just do a faith trail and get your director to come along? Because it's all around recruitment. Because the key thing is it's sort of like safety around working with people that you know and you like, who think like you and actually look like you. But actually, if you understand people that perhaps come from a different viewpoint and see how that diversity can add value to your thinking, you'll have a stronger team. So there were about 4 of us started the faith trail, Leeds Road, Bradford. Loved it. Now it's a coach load. And actually it's getting bigger, because what's happening now is that people are realising that the world has changed. You can't operate the same way that you've always been operating. You need diversity, you need inclusivity, you need different thoughts, you need different voices. I mean, I'm a student, and when I go, into my lectures, and I actually love to go on those study sort of like, they do projects. And this year I was in Vietnam, last year I was in Singapore. They always think I'm the lecturer, but actually I'm a student. Because when I'm sitting on young people, in their early 20s, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what an amazing brain. I can't believe you think like that. And having that diversity of thought and have different sort of like lived in experiences to actually understand, why they think like that will actually make you even stronger in your business. So you're absolutely right, Fatima. We focus more around faith and culture and relationships than anything else, because the other organisations cover that really well.
Brilliant. You've experienced so much in life from personal and professional perspective. If you had to give yourself some advice now, today, reflecting back on your journey and what you're going to do in the years to come, what advice would you give yourself?
So every morning I do my prayers, and I think as I get older, I've got to, and I've realised this, I do believe in miracles, because there's been times, and you're right, because I'm pretty kind of, I'm very focused, and if I've got a goal, I'll go for it, to the extent that, I will take risk. And that's why I believe in miracles, because sometimes I'm thinking, gosh, that was a bit of a near miss, kind of thing. Then I've realised that actually we are not in control of anything. So what I want to tell myself every day is just live in the moment. Go with the flow. Live in the moment. Everything is happening for a reason. And sometimes we think, and this is where, our own kind of ego comes into it. We think we're doing everything. Look how great I am. It's not. Everything happens for a reason. If I've been privileged that my piece of advice has helped somebody, how great is that for me? But it just happens to be that I was in the right place, the right time, had something, information to give, and that person was going to make it anyway. So all I try to say to myself is just live in the moment and do the right thing. Try not to be selfish, because sometimes that thought does come where you think, I don't want to do that or whatever. Then you think, God, I'm behaving like a right cow. I don't want to be like that. So just try to do the right thing and be a good person, and everything else sorts itself out.
That's quite beautifully said, actually. And just do the right thing. That's the best advice, I guess, that anybody can have.
So you've always done that, right? Look at how many people
we try to do, don't we? Sometimes, you think you're doing the right thing, but then you need a second voice, a second opinion to sometimes direct you. I think you say that you and I have always done the right thing. But sometimes you also look at, have people done the right thing for you? And as women, we often always look at ourselves to think, are we getting a fair opportunity compared to our male counterparts? Would you say that has always been the case for you, or would you say that you've had to actually work harder and prove yourself more than you would have had if you were a man?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think because I've always been driven and because I've always thought I was brilliant, I've never thought of it that way. But as I've got older and I'm hanging around in those circles where I'm with people who are really, really very powerful.
And you hang around with a lot of dominant male business owners.
And you know what, though, Fatima, then I've realised that people have been privileged. And I've realised where, for certain, groups of people where they've been put through the, you've had to go for interviews or do, other people have been ring-fenced for work or whatever. That's where social capital is really important, So I guess that is there, but we've all got biases, haven't we? We've all got those hidden biases where we feel that we side with a certain community or a certain person, or you like the way they speak or they talk the way you are. I think it's always good to feel if somebody challenges you to give them the benefit of the doubt. So to answer your question, I think it's hard. I think that that bias does exist, but I think it.
And have you faced it?
Must have done.
Yeah.
I just don't. I remember the first time when I used to work for the Institute of Financial Accountants, and I got that job. I was headhunted. It was brilliant, and the guy was phenomenal. I didn't realise for 2 years that the rest of his board were trying to get rid of me. Because I just thought everything I did, why don't they like it? And he was sort of like really, and I really worked hard on that because it meant everything to me. And obviously I hadn't left my family, used to go there, and so that was another story. But just on that, I remember I was travelling to Scotland, and for me it was really exciting. I was getting a flight to Scotland. I mean, it was only, EasyJet at the time, but I was so excited. And when I was flying back, and I think it was snow or something, and one of the ladies, she said to me, it must be really cold for you. I said, no, I said, it's not that bad in Leeds. It gets really cold there. And her face went bright red, and I thought, where do you think I'm from? And I think if we don't see that ourselves, I never saw myself as an Asian woman. I saw myself as a person that this is what I need to do and get on with it. So I think it's all around your own confidence, your own ability, because I've always believed in myself and I know I can do it. Nobody else will tell me any different. And I always know what's good for me. I always know what's right for me.
Yeah.
So, but I also realise that those biases exist, but we're there to knock those barriers down. And as a team, we can do that together.
It's a great outlook you have in life, Sharon, and not many people can have that perception that you have, because a lot of people will play victim to that, and they should call it out if it happens. But sometimes when we're too busy looking at that as a problem, that noise stops us from then moving forward into other areas. And you've always made sure that you've never played the victim when these biases have existed. You've never, probably expressed it. You've just decided, right, I'm going to move forward with this. I'm going to overlook it. I'm going to take it on, but in my way. And you've blocked that noise out and continued to achieve the goal that you set yourself. That takes a lot of mental strength, and it's not easy to do. How have you trained your brain, so to speak, to position yourself and to just keep going, to just block all that noise out, and knowing that these biases exist, to not be as affected as I get really affected. I'm going to be honest with you, I get really affected when I see that happening to me, and sometimes I'll dwell on it.
Because it's not my problem, Fatima. In my head, it's not my problem. I've got a goal. That's what I'm going to do, and I'll find a way to do it. If anybody's trying to disrupt me, that's their problem. And I think a lot of it comes back to because when we were younger, I was always told I was brilliant and I can do anything. I believe it. And nobody will tell me any different. If something changes, you know, for example, if, you know, I have to change the course of what I do, I can do that. If somebody tries to disrupt what I do, or they're being really mean, I just move myself out of that situation. I am really selective about the company that I keep. And I've actually learned over the years that less is more. You know, have less networks, you know, and be around people who are positive. Otherwise, they're a drain on your energy. You know, you can, because sometimes you can sit in a cluster and all you do is you talk about and you think, God, how bloody boring. You know, you don't want to be involved in any of that. I'm a doer. I want to do stuff. I want to change stuff. So, you know, and actually, I always find as well that some people, they're always negative. Well, fine, be negative somewhere else. You know, you just find another discourse. You know, you just find another way to do it.
Well, that's really good advice. Well, power.
And meditate and pray. I pray a lot. When something isn't working right, I say, oh my God, sort this out for me. Please sort this out for me.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I remember having this conversation, and I hope I'm all right saying this, but you start your day at 3 o'clock in the morning, don't you?
3:30, not that early.
3:30, half an hour later, but that's still 3:30 a.m.
That's my time,
not
with
PM.
my divine. That's
3:30 a.m. is when you
meditation
start
time.
your day.
Yeah, I love that time. But by the end of the day, I do look witchified, and it's really tough. But that time in the morning, any time in the morning you can get me up. I love that time. I really love it. My prayers, that's my time. And then that's where I do my reflection, and I think, well, what do I need to do? You know, how am I going to do this? What could I have done better? You know,
That's your me time.
Yeah, that is my me time. I love that time.
And I suppose everybody should have that, shouldn't they? They should always have that few, even if it's a few minutes, just to reflect on themselves. And
then I go to the gym, because I'm a foodie. You know, I'm a foodie, so I can eat.
Well, you're looking great, Sharon. You're absolutely looking great. That gym's definitely doing wonders for you. But honestly, Sharon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here, chatting to us on Chaii and Charcha, powered by Chaiiwala. We want to wish you all the best for everything that you're doing, for all the amazing work that you're doing for yourself, for all the businesses that you work with, and for everything that you're doing globally as well. We're so proud of you, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you, Fatima.